I'd like to describe today this circle that's happening, and that is that we as salespeople are innovating. We're hearing about it. It's an amazing thing. One of the challenges that we face when we talk about this is we need to likewise understand that the customer is behaviorally modifying as we innovate. And so that's a bit of a challenge and a conundrum. It's an opportunity. Those people who do it well will win and win phenomenally. Those people who don't do it well will be challenged and may create negative consequences for themselves, for their customers, and for their sales orgs. So this is fairly fundamental, right? We have a salesperson who talks to a customer, and then we add sales enablement, and if we do this right, by the way, I'm assuming we're in a dynamic or a static model. There's nothing else affecting this relationship. If we do this right, we get happiness, right? The salesperson's happy. The customer gets what they need. Sales enablement says you're geniuses, right? This is bliss. Everybody's bliss all around. Let's add technology. So if we add technology, that means we can actually even go faster. Technological innovation allows us to accomplish more with less, or more with the same people and cover more space. And so that's the world we actually live in, is a technologically advanced space. So if we do this right, we multiply. I love hearing multiplier stories. That's the reason. True story. I saw this conference, and I reached out to Eli and I said, I want to come. Because this is one of the things I'm doing research on, is multiplying effects and trying to understand, when does a company multiply? What did they do? And so I said to Eli, I said, hey, I'm going to come to your conference, and I just want to learn. And I said, by the way, I'm willing to say stuff if that would help you. And he was nice enough to say stuff. So if, once again, their complaint department is there, the wonderful department is here. So, so this is what we get if things are good. So this is kind of what we're talking about today, right? Now, if it's okay with you, I want to move to a dark side for a second. Can we go there for a little bit? Because I think we need to think about some things. Because this is what we're trying to accomplish, and yet in a dynamic model, we have something else going on. We have our firm, and we have, we have competitors. And we have another competitor. And by the way, do we get to control the way they go to market? Do we get to control the way they touch the customer? So now, our salesperson may be kind of upset. They try to go to market off what we told them to do, and it's not working. And so we end up with sad salespeople, sad enablement people, and then we add technological innovation to what we just described. So we can actually multiply our efforts. Customer is no longer tied to what we're trying to do, actually is a swing and a miss to the customer. Because competition does things differently, the behavioral modification of the customer literally shifts the way the customer is going to react. But we didn't get to control that, and then we multiply. We multiply our efforts without necessarily, if we don't see the behavioral shift, we are deploying our salespeople faster, stronger, with more gusto in exactly the wrong direction because the market shifted. Now, what happens when this happens? This is coming back to, in the state of Texas, state of Oklahoma, Colorado, there was a period of time around the turn of the last century in which farmers saw white space. We called it prairie fields. That's what they called it. They called it prairie fields. And they looked at it and said, hey, you know what? We could create a lot of wheat out of this. And so we're going to go out in that white space and we're just going to plow that land. In fact, they plowed it in a way that they could actually do it rather fast. And they used an innovation called the Disc Plow. When they used that Disc Plow, what they didn't know is that they weren't going deep enough into the ground. And when they did that, they actually only just churned up the topsoil. And when they then harvested the wheat within 2 years to 3 years, they actually depleted the soil of all its nutrients, and farmers began to harvest almost nothing. Same technique, right? We automated. We automated and we accelerated. We accelerated our ability. So the farmers in the first iteration of this actually doubled down. They couldn't get enough harvest, so they actually plowed more land. Sound familiar to anybody? We've got a bad strategy, let's double down on it. In fact, they actually bumper cropped. So they actually plowed the land twice in 1 year. So they actually exacerbated all of their problems and created one of the greatest ecological disasters in our country. For the next 20 years, that land laid fallow. Not only did it lay fallow, it actually was a health hazard for people. Many people died because of the dust in their lungs in that area. Now you're saying, gee, my goodness, what a downer. That's why Eli's coming up after me, right? So why do you tell this story, right? If we're not careful and we do automate, automation is available to us right now. So let's actually go back through this scenario a little bit further. The truth is that what we have today is a technology situation in which all of our people are behaviorally modified. The behavioral modification isn't just happening on the customer. Our salespeople are behaviorally modified by technological innovation. They're changing the way they act. So the customer actually literally is building a fortress around themselves. Now, the amazing thing is that we have so much technology right now that we could actually get to them no matter where they go. Do you agree? Don't we know everywhere the customer really is? We know exactly what they're doing, exactly where they're shopping. We have so much data on our customer that we can really freak them out. And so the world we actually live in is being exacerbated by technological innovation. This is the VC spend in the MarTech space over the last few years. You can see we're post-peak in this space, but then if you look at the sales tech space, we're just beginning to hit the exponential curve in VC funding in the sales tech space. So actually, our ability to mechanize what we're doing is just starting. So we can do 10x coverage. We can do 5x. We can do 100x. There's a guy that I know, and I respect him a lot. I think he's a pretty smart guy. He's out on LinkedIn right now describing how he is hitting 100x performance at the top of the funnel. I think that's amazing. The thing that scared me, and I've been trying to get him on the phone for over 60 days, because one of the things he posted is he's only getting a 2x at the bottom. What's he doing? He's making a dust bowl, right? So as we innovate, as we deploy technology, one of the things we've got to be extremely careful about is making sure that our multipliers are actually proper throughout that funnel, making sure that we aren't clear-cutting space and burning out space, that if we can accelerate, that we're looking at all the information. So, as we all know, this is the MarTech stack from 2013. This is the MarTech stack from 2017. But if we put our current people into a suit that allows us to amplify everything, is that going to be good or disastrous? Something we should think about, don't you think? We're sitting in a world we could deploy this right now. So Sales Stack is exploding with about 700 apps. Probably most of you are feeling that every day right now, is you're feeling this explosion of apps. So I'd like to propose you have two choices right now. You can choose to be multipliers, or you can create decimals. That's where we're at in the world today. And sales enablement people are the people who are going to determine which direction we go. That's why I'm fascinated by this community. These are the three things I think we've got to think about to be able to successfully do this in the future. Number one, we need to have situational intelligence. What this means is that the situations on the ground floor are changing constantly. The behavioral modification that's happening to the salesperson and to the customer is something that's constant. It's not something we get to see once and then say, okay. So we need to be able to have situational intelligence. And so, since we just finished the Olympics, I went ahead and did bronze, silver, and gold levels, okay? So the first at the bronze level, at the minimum, this is why I'm a newbie to Eli's work, and I've been reading his book because I knew I was coming. And I want to be able to say I read somebody's book, and it's a good book. It talks about this concept that we really can change the culture of a sales organization at the team level, right? At the manager's level. And that's something that any manager and any enablement leader can talk to their sales leaders at the front line and say, you need to be situationally aware of the changes that are occurring and be ready to adapt. So that's the situational intelligence at the baseline level, is any manager can get situational intelligence, right? They own it. Now, a better strategy would be that we actually have an evidence gathering process at the organizational level where we're actually gaining that. So we're actually seeing the trend line shifts that are occurring. This would require some research. Some friends of mine at Florida State University are developing some things along these lines. Very, very interesting to show what's working, what's not working, and how to do that as an organization. But sometimes even apps will begin to go into the space, and then once we have apps deployed and we have information gathering on the fly through communities like a SalesHood platform, then we can have dynamic evidence-based. So we can actually see the changes occurring. We can actually capture win rate, close rate, see what's causing something to go up and down, right? So then we can change on the fly. Now, all of you are probably going, wait a minute, my goodness, we can't even get strategies to even start. It takes 18 months to roll out to the field. Yes, I understand, but do you realize that if it takes 18 months, behavior has shifted? So when you are shifting a strategy at 18 months, this is why we hear things like 80% of our training is wasted. Well, because by the time we can get it out there, the whole model has shifted. We need to get ready to move to more dynamic things. I don't know how we get there. I'm just telling us, I think this is where we're at. Is that fair? This is where the market is. So we need to get to the point where, first thing we can do, I love sales huddles. What a great concept in that book. Just wonderful idea. If I've got the sales intelligence in my team, I can bring in a huddle and we can cross-pollinate what's working, right? We can do that without an app. We can do that without a strategy change. As long as we have support, right? We have support from our org structure to get model agnostic, move away from set models and methodologies, and get towards what works in scenarios and situations. The next level is, of course, playbooks. Developing playbooks would be another level where we systematize this a little bit more. But more importantly, I think we've actually got to get to where we're agile. We're just moving. The model is just constantly moving with the data. Then the last piece is we can't ignore technology. So the two pieces that we have here with sales intelligence, situational intelligence and fluency allow us to gather the information and shift as the market requires. But then we have to deploy the technology. We have to have not only baseline systems, so the first thing you have to have is, of course, we have to have a CRM. We, of course, have to have a CFA. We have to have a marketing automation system. These things are table stakes in today's world. Now, sometimes I say this and you all are going, okay, we're in California and we get this. I promise you, I get in other parts of the country and people say, what? I get into academic realms and they say, what are you talking about? I'm not kidding. I had a fun conversation with some academics about what they really thought marketing automation meant. And they were honest with me and I was so proud of them. They said, we haven't got a clue. Isn't that exciting? These are people that are teaching the people you're hiring. It's exciting. So the next wave that we need to kind of think about is incremental stack. This is where we see an innovation and we just figure out where we're going to put it in. But I'd like to propose that we probably need to get to where we're actually in a dynamic stack, that literally as we see innovation, that we find ways that we just begin to automate and augment whenever the opportunity arises. I think the people who can get to these levels are going to win the game. They're going to win it faster, they're going to win it better, and they're going to serve their customers better. So we have to get better at operating in a very, very fast-moving world. It's an existential opportunity or a crisis, depends on your organization, right? So let me switch gears just for a second and tell you what we're doing about it. So we're at the University of Texas at Dallas, and this may seem pretty simple to you, but we actually use technology in the classroom. We actually have our students using SalesStack. I met with Salesforce yesterday, and I met with LinkedIn yesterday to renew our relationship, make sure that in the next academic year we have full access to Sales Navigator throughout our curriculum. Our students understand Navigator like it's a native app. Think about that. How many of your new hires know Navigator like it's the back of their hand? Trying to convince LinkedIn to do that for all sales programs around the country. I think I'm chipping an iceberg there. It's going slow. But my students actually, these are the top 10 students from our awards dinner a year ago. And here's their SSI scores. These are students. But that's amazing, isn't it? That a student has more visibility in the marketplace than I do as the head of my program. But that's the kind of people we need as we look into what the leaders we need in sales. When you hire out of a collegiate sales program, you need people who just look at a Salesforce.com, look at a SalesHood app, look at Navigator and just assume it's native. It's just the way I do business. I log in everything because that's just the way I do it. I go into Navigator because that's just the way I do it. I'm a social seller because that's just the way I do it. Am I making any of you hungry? Then you're not in onboarding, you're not responsible for training, right? Okay, so this is what we're doing. And so we're trying to help students get ready for the future. And just because we're talking about multipliers at this conference, I just wanted to tell you a little bit. This isn't hugely scientific, but since we've deployed all the technology, over the last year in 2016 to 2017, we saw a 1.6x performance bump. And we're just getting started. We didn't have a great sales program. We just played with Navigator and Time Trade. And we had a 1.6x bump. So are we ready to rev up things? But realize when you rev up people and they're prepared with the right strategies, if we put people in Iron Man suits and have them go after Hochostrovitz, are we ready? Are we ready? I don't know that we are. But I think we ought to have that conversation. Is that fair? We ought to have that conversation so that we know, because we can multiply our effects drastically. Microsoft says in the Dublin experience that they've experienced a 7x performance at the top of the funnel and a 10x performance at the bottom of the funnel by digitizing everything and introducing their people to being completely native to the platform they've designed for their people in Dublin. They started over. completely in the Dublin experience. I'm going to go there this summer and interview everybody and try to understand if they, what they put in the water, right? And try to verify it, right? I'm trying to verify multipliers. So that's all I have for you today. I hope I've made you think. That's been my goal. So.
Thank you very much.